Goliath make the beat now.
What's good, peoples and folks? It's your boy Goliath. You already know what time it is. Today we're going to be going over some mixing techniques and some things that I do to set up my mix prior to mixing. Kind of give you an idea of what it looks like while I'm mixing. So, thank you for joining in. Go ahead and feel free to comment, share the live, like, follow, do whatever the social medias are having you do at this point. Alright, and let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and open Pro Tools up here. So give me a second. We're spending most of our time in Pro Tools, well, all of our time today in Pro Tools. So that will be awesome. Alright. Hopefully I will not lose volume when we do this. I will have to check the audio mixer. Alrighty, come on, Pro Tools load. When you got a lot of plugins like I do, it takes forever to load. Alright, let's go ahead and open up one of these. We'll actually open up this one. We're going to start from scratch. I could have just started a new one. Maybe I should have. We'll find out soon enough. Excuse the drink opening up. Ooh, and I think I got new. I think I did get new vocal cuts from her. We will have to see. Alright, so this is the edit window, then the mix window. Alright, so we can see we have a mix on here. We're actually going to get rid of it. So we're going to save session as. I'm just going to throw a version 2 on here. And version MTC actually. That way we have an idea of where we're at. Alright, so normally we would not have all of these things on here. So let's get rid of everything. These auxes would be gone. These auxes would be gone. And then all of these plugins would be gone. So all I'm doing right now is holding down the option key and then selecting what I want, and it is affecting all of the tracks at the same time. Alright, so here we go. So first thing I would do if I'm given a session, usually it's like this. I don't have any auxes, I don't have any master, you just have the audio that you imported from wherever they sent it from, right? So we can see the 808 starts there with the music, and the first Vox we have is here. So I'm going to want something to separate there. We're going to put the vocal auxes there, but first I want a master fader. So very first thing, the master fader is the master of the whole song. So what's turned up, turned down, that is the master. It controls everything. The next thing that I want to do is create all my music auxes that I would like. So for the music auxes, I usually set up 5 different aux inputs, tracks, okay? And basically these are faders that don't have any audio or anything to them. They are places I can route music to, for that matter. So the first one I know is going to be my music master. Second one is usually my drums. After drums, we'll go ahead and do a drum comp, which is going to be the compressor that I use. We'll do a drum verb, and then most likely a delay at the end there. Alright. So for these, I want the inputs of them to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I'm going to hold down Option, Command, and Shift. On the input section, I'm going to go to bus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's how you do that, so that they all go in line. Next thing I'll do is I'll create my vocal auxes. So same thing here, except for I only want 3. And with those 3, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, holding down the Command Option Shift function, and go to bus 11 and 12, 13 and 14, 15 and 16. Wonderful. Alright, so over here, Music Master. So all these drums and delays is going to all go to the Music Master, which is bus 1 and 2. So bus 1 and 2 is going to this fader now. And then I go from the 808 all the way over to the hi-hat. It's going to be bus 3 and 4. And then the rest of the instruments I will take just straight to bus 1 and 2. So now what I've done is I have separated out. Just make sure they all went there. Okay, good. Alright, so I've separated out everything that is going to our buses here. And then let's make sure that the Vox vocals are all going to 11 and 12, which looks like they all are. Alright, wonderful. Alright, so to kind of show you what I've done, let's just kind of bring up the kick. And actually, let's go group everything together. Bring them all up to nominal, bring everything down, take all off, and get rid of this group. Alright, there we go. So let's go ahead and bring our masters up. And so we can see that the kick is going through. Just open up our edit window and just go to a loop here. You can see it's going to the drum master, and then from the drum master we're going to the music master. So I can mute it here, it's still going, but it's not going to the music master. Or I can mute at the music master, it's still going to each of these, but it's just not coming through to the speakers. So that basically gives me a place where I can turn all the music off if I want, or I can leave it playing. I can just take the drums out, and so forth and so on. So pretty simple. These are aux masters, so basically all I'm doing is sending them to this, so I have a master control. So once I set levels on the kick, right, so let's just kind of bring up levels real quick. I use a lot of different kicks on this. So this basically gives me control over the drums, and this gives me control over everything. And so I set it up that way I can control the master volumes over groups of instruments like the drums. Once I get all the drums set to a certain level, then I may want to bring them down in the mix or bring them up in the mix, or I might want to send the whole mix of the drums somewhere. So that this master fader gives me the ability to do that, or this aux fader gives me the ability to do that. The one thing I will do with my drums is I will definitely, they are not all across the stage, so I like to limit the stereo field of my drums to about 30, maybe 40 on some of them, depending on how much is there. Here we have a lot of kick information, but we don't really have much else. It's just like a kick, snare, it says a bongo and a hi-hat. So it's a pretty small drum set if you really think about it. And then let's see what else I would do here. Drum comp is always going to come straight down the center, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what that looks like. Let's actually do that. And what we'll do is, instead of pulling from this one, we'll go back to the original mix. What should be here? Sure, we'll save that. Hopefully I won't lose my audio, but if I do, I will be back, of course. Make sure to check the comments while I'm looking through everything. Alrighty. Just make sure we get. Alright. So, alright. Alright, so here's our drum compressor that we have running in parallel. So not only do I have the drums running by themselves, but I have an actual drum compressor. So let's go ahead and solo those up real quick. Let's just go to somewhere where the drums are. Alright, so here we go.
I don't know what to think.
Alright, so if I mute this, you can hear what the compressor is doing. Because if I just took it out, that would be the normal sound that we're getting. But this is the compressed signal. And basically what I've got here is a fast attack, fast release. The all is pushed in, so this would be like all of the ratios put together. It's pretty much slamming it down. And then I brought up the input level to where this needle right here is hitting at that -20 and sometimes just staying there, but then coming back, and you can hear that reverb kind of fight to come back in. It's kind of what we're looking for, is that pumping feel. So there's the drums without it. That's with it. And without it. And with it. You don't need to bring it up a lot. You just need to bring it up enough to kind of bring the drums out of the mix more. So again, without it, let me go ahead and bring some of this back in. That's with the compressor in, with the compressor out. Now just listening to the drums. So this is the part of mixing where people start telling you that you got to learn your ears, right? This is the part of mixing where you're focusing on what your effect is doing. So you're wanting to hear the difference in audio. So most people are not listening this intensely while they're just listening to playback. You're really just listening for the enjoyment, right? As an engineer, someone who's mixing a song, your goal is to listen to the subtle differences that you've done to enhance the song. So you don't want to take over the song. You don't want to make the song necessarily yours. And sometimes you do. It just depends. I mean, you look at people like Chris Lord-Alge and you look at some of the other engineers that are great out there. They definitely make the song theirs and bring something to the table when it comes to creativity on the song. So, but this is, again, going back to the fact that you're learning your ears and what your ears are telling you. Whenever I need drums to punch through a little bit more, this technique works. And it kind of gives it that life that I'm looking for. But yeah, so there's the compression on the mix there. Again, just bringing a little bit of life into the drums. Alright. Then you got your reverb. So this is the song without reverb, or the drums without reverb. Now we got that. You can kind of really hear it on the snare. Versus that's just dry. You can hear it on the snare. Like if you really pay attention to the snare, you can hear that there's really no reverb on there. But when the reverb's in, it's not so overbearing that it's like, oh my god, all I can do is hear reverb. It's just enough to kind of give it that feel. All the delay is really doing is adding some ghost hits to the snare and the bongo, so it's not just a straight bongo or snare hit. Alright, so in the panning scheme of the drums, so when I look at a mix, normally there are three things that I'm really focused on. I'm focused on the frequency clarity, or basically overall sound of the song, right? So most people would look at an EQ or something like that to change that. So are my frequencies coherent? Are they making sure their sound of the song is where it wants to be for the artist, and really just making sure the overall frequency spectrum is covered. So I don't just want all lows in my song. I want highs, mids, and I want them respective to each other. Then you have the stereo field, which is getting further and further from stereo field and more into surround sound with the Dolby Atmos and all that stuff that's out there. But basically we're talking about stereo field, or field within the visual spectrum, I'll say. So what we're talking about is from left to right, front to back sort of situation when you're talking about this. Most music is done in stereo, so we'll stick to stereo field for right now. But again, that's growing, right? So you have your frequency field or audio spectrum, however you want to look at that, tonality of the song. You have your stereo field, where are things placed within the stereo field so that they're not all on top of each other. And then you have your volume or level or gain stage of which, how loud the volume is in respect to everything. So those are the three things that I focus on whenever I'm doing a mix. I want to make sure that I am cutting frequencies and adding frequencies in certain places. Like if I want the low end to be with the kick and the bass, I might take it out of the sample or the Rhodes or the piano just a little bit more, that if you solo the piano by itself, it sounds thin, but with everything in it, it sounds good. So that's what I mean by frequency spectrum. So any of these EQs that I've got, we can go in here and like see. Let's see, I think, yeah, so for the most part on this kick, I'm cutting out anything above 1K because it's really just a low frequency kick sound. And then I'm using 1K, I'm boosting it a little bit for a little bit of the punch, because that's where you're going to find the punch in a kick. And if we go here, kind of go through and see, this one I'm boosting up a little bit more here. In the upper range, I kept the upper range in. That's probably where I want the beater of my kick to come from. Again, boosting the low end, taking out some of the mud, got rid of everything pretty much. I would say 500, 700 probably. Why isn't it telling me? Yeah, it's about 544. So everything above 500 is getting cut on that one. And then back to a regular kick 4 and kick 2 must sound the same. And then snare, because it doesn't have a lot of low end energy, I'm going to take most of the low end out of it and just boost a little bit at that 5K for this snare. The bongo hit, same thing. Just want to kind of boost up there. And then this hi-hat, everything above 1K or everything below 1K is getting cut. And then we're doing good with a little bit of a high boost on the 5K there. And then, like I said, so like the sample, it doesn't really have any low end, so we're going to take a lot of the low end out of that. Same thing with the Rhodes. I think a little bit less of the low end, though, because I wanted the low end from the Rhodes. Piano, same thing. Low end is kind of cut because I really don't want that. Low end should be coming from the 808, which I have turned down right now. But so right now, the low end's really coming from the Rhodes and the dots low. Like if we go here, you're going to see that that's not cut too bad. Actually, it's cut at 200 hertz. Getting out of the way of the sub. Same thing with the highs. And there's your EQ on the accent dots. So basically all this is again, me going through and as I'm listening, making decisions on the song on what I want to sound brighter or sound darker or have less of a muffled or a more of a muffled sound, or it just really depends on what I want the sound to do, but keeping in mind the rest of the spectrum from the rest of the song. So for stereo field, you deal with panning. So you can see here I'm not necessarily always pan straight center, but I have some things pan a little left, a little right. When we're talking about the kick and the snare and the drums in general, let's mute all the rest of the sound. So I do have my snare coming in at 17 roughly. If I'm correct here, yes. My auxes, though, are panned the opposite direction, except for this one, which should be the opposite direction. I don't know why it's not. Oh, that's the delay, which is set to ping pong, isn't it? Yep, good. Okay. So usually I'll pan my effects of something to the opposite direction just to kind of make it feel that way. So when the reverb hits for the snare, it's coming a little bit off of the right as the snares pan to the left. So let me show you what it sounds like when they're panned the same way. And that's panned where I usually have it. Back to the same way. So for me, it just adds a little bit more depth because my reverb is coming from somewhere where it would naturally come from. Again, reverb being the way that things bounce off walls and naturally attenuate or get lower in level is basically what reverb is as it dies down in a room, right? So I always think the reverb is coming from the opposite place of where it is pointed at, and that's how I feel. And so that's why I make that choice. Again, my way is not the only way. It's just how I get my sound. as you can see, they're not turned up that loud. I'm sitting at negative 15 roughly with this one. Negative 19 on the bongo, and then probably negative 17 on the hi-hat. So I'm not doing a lot of reverb. It's just enough for it to kind of touch it. Again, I don't want the reverb to be overbearing. Just want it there that once you take it away, you notice it. But if it's in, it's almost unnoticeable. Blends into the track really well. So. Like I said, the compressor is panned straight in the middle, as you can see here. So I've got, we can look over the panning scheme here of my effects and master buses. So the music itself is panned 100 left, 100 right. And then you've got the drums, which are panned 40 and 40. Like I said, I usually go 30, sometimes 40. Just really depends on, as I'm listening to the track, what I feel it's telling me. The drum comp will always be pointed center for me, because it's a parallel compressor. I only want it to punch the center of the track for me, and so that's what it's doing here. We already went over the settings, so don't need to go over those again. Drum verb, I've got about 70, so a little bit wider than what the drums are, but not widened all the way. And then the delay, I kind of have it pointed to the right a little bit more, with a 33, 53, or 63 split, it looks like. So, again, just kind of trying to aim it that way because my drums are pointed the other way. At least the things that are going to it. So, and then within the drums themselves, all my kicks are going down the center because that's normally where a kick would be coming from in the speakers. And then my snare, I'm sitting in drummer perspective, which would be a little bit off to the left of where a drummer would sit. And then my bongo, I have it a little bit off to the right. The hi-hat I have left and right because I'm doing an auto pan. So this is actually going left and right automatically as I'm going with the 2-bar interval with the sine wave. The sine wave is kind of like a circle wave, so it spends more time on the outside, whereas to a triangle is going to spend more time on in the middle. So sine wave if you want to spend more time on the outside, triangle if you want to spend more time in the middle. All right. All right, and then samples, and so all of this other stuff is really based on where you're trying to go with the song. It's going to be different for each of the sounds of the song. So this is why I don't express or I don't tell people to use, what's the word I'm looking for? Presets or templates. There it is, templates. I actually speak against templates because each sound is going to affect the plugin differently. Same thing with outboard gear. If you have outboard gear, each sound is going to affect it differently. So you want to be able to set those settings for the sound itself. So as I'm going through these, you can see the knobs are changing because, again, each sound was recorded differently. The only time that may be, some sounds are going to sound the same, I guess. Like these dots are, I want to make them feel like they came from the same place. So that's probably why they're all sounding like that. And as you can see, the drums are usually all different. Every single one of these drums is going to be different. So, again, this was gain staging. This is a tape machine. Usually every single one of my tracks are going to get a tape machine. Every single one of them are going to get an EQ and gate. Maybe not a gate, but at least an EQ. Most of the drums are all going to receive gates, and the reason for that is I want a clean sound, and then I want to add reverb. I don't want to use the reverb of the sample. Again, just these are my personal preferences. I'm not saying that this is the way it has to be done. I'm saying this is what I personally like to do. So each one of these, as you can see, will have except for the 808, it's not going to have a gate. Okay, so here's a gate, then a compressor with a virtual channel. So all of this is basically to model after some analog gear that is out there in the real world. And so that's what this is basically picking a console that I am trying to use. Then you've got your gate here. I use the drum gate because it just is easier at picking up things, and it just kind of makes it easier for the attack release and stuff like that. So I just really have to do the transient detection. As long as I set that correctly, it'll pretty much cut out everything else I don't want. And it gives me some nice filters that I can play with to kind of get the exact sound that I'm looking for. And then we have the compressor. I think on an earlier video I have gone over the compressor settings, but it will definitely probably get deeper into that. But today's just kind of an overview of what my mix setup looks like. Make sure we don't have any questions in the chat. All right, wonderful. All right, so if we go through this and we talk about what each one of these things do, the first thing, the tape machine is just going to create overall volume changes for what I'm looking for that sound. Now, what I will tell you is that an unaffected song, I start off, and basically what I'm trying to do is set this at the loudest point without getting any distortion from the sound. And then I want to bring the output of this to about where I'm hitting -3. So let's go over what I just said. Let's mute all those. Okay, let's mute everything else. Oh, I got the group on. Like, why is this doing this? Okay. Alright, so as we can see, this is hitting. Oh, watch me be wrong. Oh. 6.2. I'm not going to save. Alright, so at nominal, which is 0, I want this number right here to be -3, which is the peak. Okay, so what I'm doing here with this is basically what I did was with the input, I went up until it peaked, so this red light turned on. Okay, and when the red light turned on, I said, hey, I want to go 1 dB less than that. So I believe it was 5 something. 5.5 was probably where. Maybe go 5.6. So at 5.6, I'm getting the red dot. So I'm going to back down from that 1 dB. So that should give me 4.6. Shouldn't be red dotting anymore. -7.6. -7.3. And there you go. And so this is just gain staging. So this is stage 1 of setting up volume for everything going along the way. But this is how I would set up the virtual tape machine. So I want to take the input until it's peaking, which will give us this red light indicator, and then go down 1 dB from there. That will put this at the same as -4.6 dB because this will be linked when it's done. Then I'll unlink it and I'll go down until I'm hitting -3 on this peak meter at nominal, which is -0 on the fader. To get to nominal, you just hold Option, click on the fader, it'll jump all the way up, and then when I go to set the actual level for the song, I can bring this fader down, and that's why the faders look the way they do when you're mixing. But so I want everything to sound or to have the same energy starting out. So everything is going to get to that -3 dB peak on all of my instruments using the VTM. So again, Same process for every sound. Go up until it peaks, take it back 1 dB, and then set the output to where my peak indicator is hitting -3 in Pro Tools. If you have questions, feel free to message me and I'll definitely go over it with you. Alright, so that's the VTM. Let's go over to the next one. Let's see. The VMR. This is all from Slate Digital. Alright, so mute all this. I'm basically doing the same thing here. At nominal, we don't want to get above -3. And so I'll unlink the input output on the virtual channel. I picked Britain because as I'm going through these, that's the one that gives me the low end I want from the kick. Then I'll bring this in. You can hear how tight the actual sound gets. Can take it out. You get a little bit more of the low end coming through, but it's kind of a longer release. Put it in. Still got the low end there, but it's just tighter. All right. And then I would bring this in. Alright, so 1, 2. There we go. Once again at 0.3, that's where I want this to be after all of my plugins. Put it in. Take it out. Put it in. Take it out. Put it in. All right. And so again, we're at -3. There we go. I believe we're at 5.6. On the song. We're gonna sidechain this, so I'm going to bring a compressor in. Let's just do the C1 comp. good.
I just pray they don't put him in them cages. I done wash my hands with all of the fakers that play in my face like I'm sitting at stages. I done took off in a spaceship, and by that I mean it ain't no breaking. Don't know what else you expect I be saying besides everything's mine for the taking. No, I don't know what to think. Pushing myself to the brink, and you asking more of me. Oh, I don't know how to feel when you ask me if it's real. Don't this ice give you the chills? Oh, I don't know. 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 I don't
Yeah, so that sounds good. Alright, so hopefully you guys learned something throughout all this. Again, mixing in buses is exactly what you want to do. Making sure you got a master fader for different pieces of the song, whether it be the drums, melodic instruments, vocals, even different parts of the vocals. If you have a lot of background vocals, separating those out into different aux tracks so that you have control over them and you can manipulate them in different ways. So definitely suggest on that. We'll go over the mastering side of things probably in another video. Today I just wanted to get the setup of a mix, kind of, showing you how to do the auxes like we did in the beginning, telling you what the auxes are for, and giving you a kind of rundown on how that all breaks down as we go through this. We'll probably get into more beat making stuff next week, but as always, definitely thank you for tuning in. I'm trying to teach you as much as possible without going too deep into things. Again, we're going to get deeper as we go forward. So hope you guys are having a good day, and I look forward to the next one.
Goliath make the beat now.